Howdy, folks. This is Chris White, and you're listening to Basic Business Advice. Here this morning with Tyler Needing Media. You should by now know, if you're a listener to the last couple episodes, Tyler's out on his own. So if you have any podcasting, video, audio, photography needs, reach out to Tyler and Tyler at Needing Media.
I also do consulting.
He is a great consultant.
I would consult, whatever that means. But if you want to pay me to come talk to you, that would be cool.
Perfect. Yeah, the therapy maybe a little bit? Okay. Very good. I can't qualify to anything about Tyler's therapeutic skills, but he's really good at audio video. Yeah. So
that's the main part, yeah.
Our guest today is Chad Heller. Chad is the operations manager at Hummel Group. One of the operations manager at Hummel Group. Chad, you've been doing this job for how many years now?
I've been at Hummel for 20 years. I've been operations.
And you started when you were 12, right?
Yes, it seems like it. I can't believe it's been 20 years. But I've been operations for 5-ish years.
5-ish years?
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to dive right in here.
Yep.
We talking about change. Mm-hmm. And Hummel, we did the math real quick beforehand. 66-year-old entity.
Yeah. You
guys have multiple locations across Ohio. You have entities that you've bought in other states. And this is, do you have how many people does Hummel employ right now?
175.
175 people across how many states? 2, 3?
Two states.
2 states. And you've had people that this has been their entire career.
Yes.
Change has to be an interesting conversation. How does that even start? So you go, hey guys, maybe we need to talk about, where do you even start when that begins?
Well, when I started at Hummel, we had 2 locations, and it was Berlin, and we had only half of the building, a quarter of the building full.
Yeah.
Now we have all of the building except for the bank full, including the basement, and we have 6 locations, one in Indiana, and the rest of them throughout northeast, central Ohio. How we get those people that are so stuck in their ways, that they've been doing this for years, to change, I don't know. This is going to be a really lame podcast. No, we have, there's so many different ways that we've tried, and I think one of the things that is important is trying and realizing when it doesn't work, being okay to say, hey, that didn't work. And we've done that with a lot of things where we've changed phone systems, we've changed management systems, carrier relations, and in insurance, much like anything else, if it's not changing, it's not growing. And so when I've had to tell my staff too, I'm like, hey, if you guys don't like change, you're in the wrong business. I mean, because it's constant change. Even if we weren't growing, we've got contracts from our carriers that are changing constantly, premiums that are changing, rules, eligibility, stuff like that. We've got to, and so there's a lot of changes. So the one thing that I've found, this is probably the key for me, I don't want to say it's the end all be all, but finding champions for the change is probably, for what we do, I think is most important. So it's not just coming from above, from the leadership. It's actually coming from the peers. So we will select pilot group, say, hey, here's what we're going to be doing. Try it out. See what you think. And, their input is valuable, knowing that they say, oh, this is not working or this is working. Working out the kinks somewhat, and then bringing that out to the masses and saying, here's what we're going to do. And it's not, again, from an executive office saying, we're doing this. It's from their peers saying, we're going to try that. We've been doing this for a while and it's actually been working. So that to me, there's so many other components to it, but I think for me is the best way to get something moving in the direction. Now, does it always move fast? No.
Sure.
I mean, I mean, with a 66-year-old entity that has been going a certain direction, it's like turning a cruise ship. I mean, it's not gonna go fast, and know that there's gonna be growing pains, and know that you're not gonna turn on a dime. It's gonna be gradual, and I think that in a nutshell.
Yeah. So while you're talking, I'm having flashbacks. So the firm is a fully digital firm, and I have the benefit of having started in a digital age, of only being 13 years old, and everything could start that way. But the first firm I worked at, they had a storage shed full of boxes that I would get sent to the storage shed to find the old client files, and they were put on the old duplicated paper. That literally the shed had boxes full of paper that was blank because it had just over time worn out. I mean, change is not something that old institutionalized entities come by easy.
No. And I think the vision, you got to present the vision to the staff too. And it's not just, hey, we're doing this. It's why are we doing this? So, with the paper files, we had paper files too. And it was in 2015, I believe, where we digitized all our documents.
Yeah.
We were kind of there. We were kind of digitizing some of the stuff, but we were not. We still had transaction files and daily files, all this stuff that we were constantly filing. And we said, no more. We're going to scan that in, put it in. Anything that comes in electronic. Man, you would have thought we killed somebody's puppy. People were just, they were so like, oh my gosh, we're not doing this, are we? We're not. This is horrible. It took,
These computers are still a passing fad. They're not going to stick around.
Right.
But it probably took a year, maybe a little more. And then finally we're like, you know what? It's not bad. And now we're to the point where if we didn't have that digital file system, we wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And it's so much better. Oh my goodness. So much better.
So I work with attorneys, a lot of like independent actors. They want to do their thing. What's it like working with insurance agents? What's it like working in an environment? Is that a group that's like, this is my cheese? Don't touch my cheese. Don't move my cheese. Or are they open to change? Because you're saying policies change a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Laws change, rules change, what you cover can change.
Yeah.
Whether somebody's burned down their building 3 times changes what you can do. Right. Are they a group that's more open to it?
I don't know if they're more open to it. I will instead of categorizing them as insurance agents, I'll subcategorize them. We have some service people, and then we have our sales people. Our service people are almost always, and I shouldn't say almost always, but generally, they're the ones that will accept change more than the salespeople. The salespeople are like, we don't want to get lost in those details. We just want to sell the policy.
Sure.
Like, well, you gotta know the details if you're going to sell the policy. You got to know how to process. So, like, a lot of my job is process, is making sure that things are running efficiently. And so you've got to do step 1, 2, and 3. And salespeople are like, I just want to do step 3. Well, but we have to change that. We can't. We have to actually do 1 and 2 first. Well, I don't want to do that. So that has been, I don't know if that we are resistant to change in compared to like attorneys or anything like that, but I do think that it does come with the job because contracts change. Attorneys get a hold of our contracts and tear them apart and say,
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is no good. So we have to change so that it fits.
Yeah. So put aside the fact that Humble's 66 years old, put aside the fact that you've got, what happens in the environment where you have somebody who says, I just don't want to change?
Find a new job. I don't know. No, we have those. And I think it's again, if you can find peers to be champions, and then you massage it, and it's not an instant thing, and that it's going to be hard for them to change. So you're massaging it, and you're I don't know if that's a great visual, but you know what I mean. It has to marinate for some people. Like, it's not going to be, oh, I'm excited, I'm going to do this. I know that there's some people that will not do it, and I will. No names, but I will say there are a couple people that I know that I've had to manage where they're still sort of stuck in one area where I've tried to push them, and it's been so painful sometimes to get them to shift in it. But I'm taking small wins, and that's the other piece to this too, is letting them have small wins and say, okay, look, you did take a step in the right direction. Look how that worked. Oh, okay, I can see that. And then let's take it the next step further. And eventually we get it to the step where we want it to be. So, and just for instance, we have an onboarding process. And I have been a strong proponent of, when a client wants to switch their insurance, that they don't want to sit on the phone with us for more than 15 minutes. Now, there's two sides of that. One, we need time to evaluate a risk before we can actually insure it. So 15 minutes is probably not enough time. But on the other side, we do have tools that we can evaluate the risk without spending 15 minutes on the phone. We have some people who've been doing this for a long time that want to spend an hour on the phone. Yes, exactly. And I know there are people out there that probably want that, but I would say the majority of people turned off, especially in this stage when you can go online and get a quote instantaneously.
Right.
So we have to balance between being thorough and evaluating the risk, and also being timely and being respectful of the time. And that has been probably one of my bigger battles, is getting people that are used to taking the time to expediting it a little bit, because they think, oh, we don't care. Like,
Sure.
Well, it's not that we don't care, but we have tools now. There are a ton of tools. You can go online and you can pull up property, and you can go out and inspect the property. Honestly, all I need really is your name and an address and a date of birth, and I can pull up a lot of information about you.
Right.
That's all I need. And that's creepy, but also that's the age we're in.
Yeah, really.
Chad just broke the Dan Olabi rule. It's okay. We forget.
I get passionate about
it. So you're talking, and I'm going to share a moment from something that we're experiencing right now. Obviously, AI has been like the foremost topic. And how is it going to disrupt industry? How is it going to take editing out of Tyler's hands on video? How is it going to change the legal industry? And so we've had the start of those conversations with our attorneys, not knowing that we don't know where this is headed. We don't know what regulations are going to be put in place. We don't know what tools are going to be available next week, let alone 3 months from now, that are going to change this. But I watch the body language. So yesterday we were together with the attorneys, and Ken Hosteller got up and presented just a 20 minutes. Hey, this is what we're seeing happening in the market. It was meant to be informational. I watched the body language of the attorneys. Some of them were like, yeah, relax. This is okay. This is something we're headed towards. There were several that it was, all I could express that was they looked threatened. They looked like they were being cornered with this just informational conversation about how AI may disrupt, improve, change the delivery of legal services. That's hard when you realize, and I mean, with a team of 175, I've got 13 attorneys, you've got 175 people. How do you encounter those conversations? What do you do when you see that happening with your people?
Well, one of the things and AI is, yes, I mean, that's a threat to everybody, I think, for now. I mean, I don't know if it's a good threat or bad threat, but we see that with like our direct competitors. So like you can go online and you can issue your policy in 15 minutes. What's stopping you?
Yeah.
Go for it. And you see all these ads online that says 15% or more. What we have talked about and where our philosophy with that is, and we've not pushed the AI subject quite yet because we don't know how it's going to affect our industry, but the direct writers is where I think we struggle the most in as far as it could be a threat. It hasn't been a threat yet because we do differentiate ourselves in that will not evaluate your risk. You don't have a person to talk to. And when you call in to a direct company, you're calling an 800 number, and who knows who's answering. They don't know you from Adam. And so we're going to give you the personal touch. Even though we're a big insurance agency, we're still personal.
Yeah.
And we want to maintain that. And that's probably the where when we start thinking, oh man, you can go here and do that, but we still, I think, have a competitive edge in that we're here, we're human. You're not gonna get any help in those situations. Now, if you are one of those insurance shoppers that doesn't care and they just want price, okay, fine, maybe that is the right way to go. But the moment you have an accident or a claim that you need help with, you're going to say, oh my goodness, this was a bad decision. I don't know who I'm talking to. These people don't care who I am. They don't even know where I live. We win.
So I'm thinking about what you're saying because the relational component of things makes these conversations easy. Have you run into, in your situation, people who are, I guess toxic is going to be a strong word, but they are the people that are going to be a challenge to change? And you've talked about champions, and you've talked about showing value, but have you run into that in a change environment, and how have you addressed that with those people?
You're talking staff?
Yeah.
Again, it's we have run into it, and it's sometimes getting them, encouraging them as much as we possibly can. I do a lot of data analysis, and one thing that I've often struggled with is I want to be transparent with my staff and let them know this is the data that I'm gathering on you, so I can see what you're doing when you're doing it. It's not a micromanaging thing. It's more of a, hey, I want to make sure everyone's doing what they need to do, and the load is equal. So sometimes what I've done, if I'm able to measure it, and I have someone that is toxic and not willing to change, is I'll start measuring it. And when I start measuring it and I show them, hey, you're not doing this. Here's where everybody else is, and this is where you're. It doesn't always work, but it does sometimes work when they're like, okay, I see that I'm the only one that's not doing this. Now, if there's not a way to measure it, it's more of a coaching thing. And I brought a book in here. It's a shameless plug, but yeah. I don't know if you guys have ever read Patrick Lencioni's 7 or 6. What is it called? It's the hold on, sorry about that.
Hold, please.
6 types of working geniuses.
Oh no.
I'm not going to give you a full book review, but it is something that, for me, when I'm looking at this, he separates your working genius. It's sort of like a personality test.
Yeah.
Can I have that piece of paper there? So he has 6 geniuses that he goes into. One is wonder, then invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. And with that, he says you have 2 working geniuses out of those 6. And then you have 2 working frustrations out of those 6. And then 2 are competent. So you're in the middle. And and there's a test you can take, and it tells you where you're at. In this book, it's more of a fable, and there's at the end there, it kind of gives you a kind of rundown. But the one thing that I really appreciate what this has shown me is that I suck at galvanizing. And by galvanizing, it's the team, rah, let's go, let's get this going. So when you ask, how do you get a champion, or how do you get someone that is toxic to go, I have to go find someone that is galvanizing on my team to kind of help draw them in a little bit. My genius is invention and discernment. So I like to build things, and then I like to feel things in my, like, if I feel like this is not going to work, my discernment, I have a strong, I guess, that's my genius. But I have my frustration is definitely galvanizing. So finding someone on your team that is strong with galvanizing, I'm not saying galvanizing is the only thing that helps, but knowing that my frustration is galvanizing, I realize that I'm not always the best person to bring the whole team together and say, we're going to do this. This is exciting. I just don't do that. I'm like, here's what we need to do. Go do it.
So you fundamentally believe the data should motivate the change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or a feeling. Cause because my discernment is one of my strong suits too. And like, I can sometimes feel like, this is not going to work. Right. Now I might be wrong, but I feel good I'm pretty confident in what my feelings are telling me. So,
but this is, so from a perspective, change is not an individual agenda. You have to have a whole group, it sounds like. You've talked about champions. You've talked about people who can galvanize or inspire others to the change. You've talked about your component of it, of the data points of this. This sounds like it is super intentional, and as you already said, super slow.
It can be. So if you talk to my wife, I am slow to
plug to Amanda. We all love Amanda.
Hi, Amanda. Love you. I never call her Amanda. I call her Mandy. So she's gonna be like, "Why did you call me Amanda?"
Yeah. Are you mad at me?
It's because Chris did.
I am resistant to change at home, but I am excited to change at work. And I've thought about that for a long time. Why is that the case? And I think it boils down to, at home, I don't feel like, and it's not because Mandy is a control freak, because she's not. I feel like I have control of the situation the way it is, and if I change it, I don't have control of the situation. Sounds weird. But then at work, I'm excited because I feel like I have control of the situation no matter what happens. And I can control the narrative. I can control, and that, again, this is not a power thing, but this is more of I feel like if we make a mistake, it's easy to turn and say, let's do something different. And at home, I always feel like if I make a mistake, it's harder. So I'm like, oh, it's personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. There's.
Is it because there's emotional baggage?
I think so. And baggage is a great word, because I think that's really what it comes down to. Because I don't. It's scary to change at home sometimes, and I've had a lot of change in my life in the last couple of years too. So that's part of the reason too. Is like, oh, I've done a ton of change, and so I don't want to do any more changes. But like at work, I'm like, nah, we do change every day. I got this.
Yeah, yeah. That's fascinating, because you're saying that, and I've thought about all the changes we've been through. When you have a great team, when outside of the change topic, you look at your people and you're like, these are a great team. I think there's some probably unifying traits. They show ownership over what they're doing. They believe in the mission of what's supposed to be happening. They're plugged in and they try. I wonder if sometimes those folks that we would view as intransigent or opposing change are having the same problem you just described at home. they've got emotional baggage tied to that change at work. Where for some of us, myself, being a chaos agent as it is and changing everything anywhere, that doesn't resonate, or I don't always think about the fact that these great team members are having an emotional baggage reaction to this change. And that's, as you're talking about, I was like, well, maybe I should care about that a little more.
I think part of that is there's those that have that. I think the other part too is there's some that want control, and we've totally taken control away from them by changing the process, because they were in control at one point. Now we're changing it, and they're like, what? So those are the people that I feel like, and I think of, there's a couple people on my team that I can think of right now that I know that anytime I do a change, they are on the disc profile. I'm assuming you guys have talked about the disc profile. They're a D on the disc profile, and they're the ones that are so resistant to change. And I have to get them on board, which I'm like, hey, you guys are our pilot group. You're the champions. Bring them so they feel like they're in control a little bit more, and they have to say, hey, this didn't work or this did work. I don't know. So I think there's the component of control too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is awesome. I've got Tyler. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't. No. Nothing that would be worth anything.
You just went through change, man.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we're in a season. It's good. It's definitely a good change for us. We've been through. I mean, just in a year. Mm-hmm. My wife wasn't working. She was at home with our child. He was just born, and then we bought a house, and I was working full time and doing my business full time, and then she got hired someplace, and then we changed again. Moved, remodeled the house,
painted the trim black.
It was green.
Oh, well, that's a good change.
Yeah, it was a great change. Yeah. Yeah, change. I don't know. Change is never something you're comfortable with. No, but it's necessary.
It is. And the thing, I think it's scary because you're stepping into the unknown and you don't have control, and you never really know what the outcome's going to be until you've done it.
Yep.
And most people don't want to take that step and see what happens after they do it.
Yeah.
And so I can say personally, as much as I am resistant to change at home, 9 times out of 10 when we do a change, I'm like, oh,
yep,
that wasn't that bad.
Well, I was about to say, I was like, I don't know why I ever like doubt it, or lose faith in that, like, it's going to be okay, because it always is fine. And we always figure something out. If it's not,
your mind tells you it's going to fail.
Yep.
And you believe it.
But it's true. Yeah.
Well, just think about it for a second. You tie your shoes the same way. Now, I realize I wear sandals, and so I'm the worst person to talk about this ever. But you tie your shoes the same way every single day. What if you had to change the way you tied your shoes? Something that basic would require a massive amount of mental effort before it becomes easy again.
Well, addiction. I mean, anything like that. That is the addiction to whatever it is that you're doing. It's like your security blanket. Yeah. You've always done it this way, and if you take it away, what's going to happen? How's my life going to change? Is it going to be? I mean, it's so. Oh,
so it also sounds like, though, from the basis of what we're talking about, change needs to be on purpose. Meaning, especially if you have 175 people that are going to be impacted by it across multiple offices, that you're not going to be there personally with them during those changes. This needs to be worth it.
Yeah.
It needs to be on purpose. It needs to be worth it. It can't just be, Chad has an idea that we could change all of this stuff.
Yeah. And that is something I think I struggled with at the very beginning, because there were some things I'm like, I want to change this, and I'd change it. And then I'm like, oh, that was not, that was probably too quick. I need to take some time. And I am a D on the disc. And so when I see something, I want to get it done. I don't want to wait and analyze all this stuff. But I have great people on our team that slow me down And that's what I need. I need someone to like pull the reins back, be like, whoa, let's think about this a little bit. But then I think you're right. We have to be able to communicate the why and the purpose behind it. And if the why and the purpose behind it is not communicated, then people are just changing for the sake of change, and they're going to say, well, why are we doing that? And we're not even going to do it. So, yes.
Because the rhythms aren't even established. They're going to have to learn a whole new thing. There's a real disruption that comes with change.
Oh, yeah.
Emotional efficiencies, production.
Yep.
There's a real, and that's something that I've learned we have to plan for. If there's going to be a major change, even if we're moving offices, and it should be one of those things that's like, hey, this is giving you more space. There is a real disruption that happens while people kind of reset themselves inside of that. So, Chad, you've done change and you've implemented change on an organization-wide level. If you had somebody out there that came up and said, I see a change, where do I start? How would you give them like the first steps to tackle that from your experience?
I think you need to be clear for the need of change first. Like, is it needed? Is that something that is going to better you? Is it something? I think that's where I would start. Is it just an idea that sounds good to you at the time? Again, pulling the reins back a little bit, saying, hey, hold on. Don't just change because this is a shiny object, because in 3 months after you change, it's not going to be a shiny object anymore. And you're going to, it's that instant gratification. I'm going to change because this looks awesome.
Right.
How many times have we done that? I mean, I know personally, like, I'm like, oh, I want to get this. This is the shiny thing I'm going to change. And I get it. And it's like, oh. So I think be clear for the need to change. And then after that would be, how are we going to implement this? And what does it do to our looking at the future? Not just like right now, what is it going to do tomorrow? What is it going to do in 3 years? So, and is this something that if we do this, that it's not going to be so disruptive, we're going to lose clients, we're not going to lose staff. Now, it's going to be disruptive, but is it so disruptive that it's going to really ruin the business for a while? And is it something we can turn back from? Like, if it's really bad, are we able to turn back and say, okay, that's all right, we failed? I think of Elon Musk. I mean, he did the flight up there, and he told everybody, this is going to explode. We want it to get off the pad. That's right. The first success. And they knew that whole team knew, if it fails, we know that the success is that first step. And after that, if it fails, it fails. And it did. And everyone was clapping. You're like, what are they clapping about? The thing exploded.
Right. Got off the ground.
It got off the ground. That's all they wanted to do. So I think that's the first thing, is celebrating. And then once you have that, then celebrating those little successes where you make the first step. You're like, okay, hey, great. We made the first step. We got a long ways to go, because it's a cruise ship that's going to take forever to turn around. That first step is always the hardest thing. And then let's celebrate that, and let's keep on going.
I think it's interesting because I'm thinking about what you're saying there, and even the Musk example, is change has almost its own momentum. That once you've established that clear objective and you know how, and you get that galvanizer to come in, you get people inspired. If you can keep that going, not necessarily keep things changing all the time, but you keep that momentum, you can make the next change easier.
Yeah.
And I think that change has the ability to keep facilitating, because I think most of our teams are like, tell me what I need to do, give me the tools to do it, and let me do it. And that can get them established and intransigent and rigid. But if we can help them budge and move a little bit and show them the benefits of it and prove it out, follow through, the next change we need from them can be a little easier.
Yes.
And we can get that momentum going, because right now, like we said, AI is changing the landscape of tons of industries. we don't even know what the impact's going to be.
Right.
But if we can start those conversations, even with the ones that feel defensive, I think what we're saying is that it can keep it moving easier. So
if you can lean into it and be something you practice, practice change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love what you said. The very first thing with all the changes need to be why. Why are we doing this? What are we really clear?
Yeah. And I think also as leaders, we have to be open. We're talking a lot about the staff and them, how do we lead them to change? Even clients, how do we lead them to change? How do we lead ourselves to change? I mean, and I think one of the things that I think we do a good job at Hummel anyways, maybe we could do a better job, but listening to your staff, because there are things that, hey, this is not working. We're in the trenches. This is not working. We hear it all day. We did a big change a couple of years ago to a new phone system, and it was way better than what we had before. I mean, we're talking like basically the little dials on our phones.
Yeah. Rotary.
To something that was digital. We're like, wow, this is great. And we can measure all the calls and we can transfer calls and all this stuff. It's been horrible. I mean, it was good at first, and then it's been horrible now because the system is wonky. We're getting horrible service. We drop calls all the time. We cannot figure out what is going on.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible first impression for clients that are calling into us for the first time. We're dropping their call. I'm like, what is going on? So hearing them say how frustrated they are with the phone calls and us saying, well, no, we just bought this system and we're going to stick with it.
Yeah.
No, we got to listen to them. And that is something we are looking at new phone systems. If you have any suggestions, I'm open to it. But that is something, listening to the staff. And even if they don't just say, hey, we need to change, hearing them saying, this is really a frustrating process.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how can we do that better?
I love that, because a culture of change is not just your team's ability to change, but your leader's ability to listen to a team.
Yes.
Because that's awesome. When your team comes and says, we want to change this, man, listening to that, that's got to be a big deal. So, Chad, thank you so much.
Yep.
I appreciate this conversation.
Yep.
This has really got me thinking about multiple things that we're working on here as well. So appreciate your time this morning so much. Listeners, thank you for listening. Do want to give a pitch for November 2nd. We have the 11th GapCon, and we're going to be focusing in on our speakers and our lineup and our tracks here in the coming months. So we'll pitch some more of that to you. But November 2nd at the Encore Hotel in Berlin. We'll be getting started about 8 or 9 o'clock that morning. So go ahead and put a save the date on there. So on behalf of Tyler and Chad, this is Chris White, and you've been listening to Basic Business Advice.